guys, we have a breaking video. This time around, today, I'm just going to do reaction videos. I know you guys like the reaction videos. We have a white woman from Mississippi, and she says she knows about racism. She lives around it. She grew up around it. She knows what it looks like. And she's given us more details on what happened with Nolan Wales and how he could have been, attacked. I think it's very informative. It's making its circles around now. So I wanted you guys to hear it and react and put comments. How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel like, this is right? Also, she referenced Nancy Grace. Okay. So let's watch it and comment. I want to know your thoughts.
Okay, so real quick before we get into this, a white woman nobody knew was watching, and by an organization that went back to Horn Island, with timestamps, photos, and a report that does not match what friends first said. So do yourself a favor, put the phone down, turn the volume up, and pay close attention to what comes next, because the details in this one are not the kind you catch half listening. Let's get into it.
I just want to insert my opinion for like 2 seconds on the Nolan Wells case, because I just saw where Nancy Grace came out with the transcribed CETO call. And here's my thing from the South. So I feel like I can speak on this because I grew up around nothing but racist. Okay. And so as someone with this skin, I feel like I could speak out on this. Here's my questions. Why? First of all, so many of y'all want to say that it wasn't murder. Like, so many of y'all were so quick to say it wasn't murder, that things happened. If that was the case, then why do none of the friends know what happened? Furthermore, Nancy Grace just released a CETO call. Anybody in their right mind, if you hear what was on that call in the background where they're asking, is someone dead? First things first, you're not going to call CETO. You're going to call 911, typically, if you're worried about someone. Secondly, why did you turn down Coast Guard when they asked if you needed the Coast Guard? If you are sinking, and if there is that shit going on in the background, like what they're asking about, is someone dead, you should say yes to any bit of help that you can get, right? I also think it's odd that all of them got rid of their social media. None of them have really had much of an explanation. They do what your typical white people do in those circumstances. Look at the Murdoch case, and there was no one of color in that case. But because they were prominent Caucasians surrounding around that death of the girlfriend, they did everything they could to cover up and get him out of it. The same rules apply to this, and like in my head, the same rules apply to this. They were both situations were boating, and in those situations, someone unfortunately lost their life. But getting back to the Nolan case, hearing that voice, like hearing that recording of them asking for, or just asking if someone is dead in the background. How is it that you're clueless and you have no idea what could have happened to him? That call, like, there's a reason why Nancy Grace got her bob fixed to the heavens, honey. That thing wouldn't move in hurricane force winds. She knows something. Her gut tells her something, just like my gut has been telling me something has been going on with this case. It was too weird. It was too weird. And I got to be careful with how I say things, because y'all love to drag me through the mud anytime I talk out against Caucasians. So I'm trying to be careful with how I word this. But before I get in the shower, I've had a long day at work. Before I get in the shower, I really wanted to put a little bit of 2 cents in your head with that, because I commented on Nancy Grace's video, and already people have started coming for me. And all I did was comment, why did we call CETO and not 911? And several people commented and said, well, because there was no medical emergency. You fucking racist idiot. What do you mean there's no medical emergency? Open your fucking ears. And do you not hear them in the background asking if someone is dead? Are you that small-minded that you will forego any bit of the facts because you need your story to be the truth, where no one was murdered? If that was your youngin', if the roles were reversed, y'all, my God, My God, as a white person, I can come out and say that. I know good and well if the roles were reversed, y'all would be dragging this through the mud. But because it was a group of Caucasians and it was an African American person that passed away, all of you small minded, closed, racist people, you immediately want to assume that he died of like natural causes or he caused his own death or it wasn't a murder. I will always stand on the right side of history. I promise you. I don't care how many people cancel me, how many people come for me. My boys will know that their mother always stood on the right side of history. I have said that there was something fishy about this case from the moment it came out in the news. And as soon as I posted something about it, y'all came for me. And I'm just here to say that I stand with Nancy. There's a reason why Nancy is as into this as she was the Casey Anthony shit. Okay? She knows because her spidey senses are tingling just like my spidey senses are tingling. If a youngin' ever went with me on a boat, it don't matter if they were black, white, brown, purple, green, blue, square, triangle, rectangle, obtuse, caboose, papatoose, you name it. That baby's coming home with me and my family. I don't care if anybody got in a fight or an altercation. If you go on the boat with me and my husband, I'm bringing you back. Scout's honor. Promise. Promise. There's something you never leave anybody, anywhere, especially on water. Y'all can get the fuck out of here with your excuses. That's the thing about you racist people. Y'all will make an excuse out of anything to justify any type of actions. Every single time. There's always an excuse. Just as soon as something happens in the media when an African American or a brown skinned person is involved, you're quick to say, stupid is as stupid does, right? All those things. But you didn't say that about the young girl that died with the Murdochs on the boat. Everybody was boohooing in tears about her dying. It was so tragic, right? But we don't have that same sympathy for this poor youngin' who had his whole life ahead of him. It doesn't matter what the familial situations were, because I saw that being thrown around. That doesn't matter. He went out with a group of friends. He should have came back with a group of friends, alive. And if he ever went missing, their first thing should have been, we need to find him. We need to know what's going on. How is it that we all of a sudden, everybody's got amnesia and nobody knows what happened to him and nobody can find him? Make that make sense. Those are the type of people that I don't want my children around. Y'all are so twisted. Y'all are so twisted. I cannot wait for the truth to come out about this poor baby. Just to prove to a lot of you small-minded, closed-minded, racist people, how many more people have to die for you to see that there is a common denominator here? There's a problem. I wouldn't let my own children who are Caucasian go on a boat with a group full of other Caucasian children. Let that sink in. We'll not allow it. The only time I'll allow it is if I'm there. That's it. I pray that some of y'all find a little bit of brains in between your ears. And I pray that some of y'all find a little bit of empathy too, because all of you closed-minded, small-minded racists are also you claim to be Christians. Y'all are the most evil people I have ever seen in my entire life. Evil. Evil people. And that right there is why so many young people, and I don't even think I'm young, but I can include myself in this. There's a reason why me and my family don't go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday like I did when I grew up. Your body is your temple. Jesus is right here. Those of you that go to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, and the ones that post your Bible verses or, live, laugh, love, eat, pray, love, whatever on your walls, you're the same people. You're the same people. I'm disgusted with y'all. Like, to everyone with brown skin, please let me formally apologize, because I do not share the views and the thought patterns and anything to do with what the people that share my skin color have. But I apologize for these small-minded people, because as someone who was raised around nothing but small-minded racists, I grew a brain myself and decided what I wanted to pick as right and wrong. And I'm so sorry that not all of us feel this way, but I promise you, I feel so passionately about this that I will do everything that I can in my power to never stop running my lips to help just shed light onto what y'all go through.
Now picture one of the 3 boats anchored out there that day, the Triton. The Triton is the boat that took on water before leaving the island without Nolan. That detail right there, hold it, because it matters more than almost anything else we will talk about today. Nolan Wells, who was black, had traveled to that uninhabited island with a group of friends from high school, all of whom were white. At the time of his disappearance, he was attending Southwest Mississippi Community College on a football scholarship, playing wide receiver. He went to Horn Island to celebrate the 4th of July. He did not come home. His parents reported him missing around midnight. His body was found on the island on July 6th, 2 days later. But here is the question we are sitting with today, and it is not the one most people are asking. The question is not whether Nolan drowned. The question is this: who was still on that island after his friends left? What did they see? And why is a civilian organization the one having to tell us? What time that boat actually departed? This is not just a missing person case that ended in tragedy. This is the story of a 3-hour window on a barrier island. A window that, until this week, had no witness to fill it. We are going to walk through exactly what the Cajun Navy's report says. We are going to talk about the woman who was on that island who is now speaking, and we are going to look at what those 2 things do to the story that Nolan's friends originally told. If you are new here, welcome. We cover active investigations. We follow the evidence. We do not rush to conclusions, but we do not ignore contradictions either. Stay with me. Now, the Cajun Navy. United Cajun Navy Vice President Brian Trasher told News Nation the group's search began after Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, contacted the organization for help. Trasher said volunteers began organizing around midday, contacted the Cajun Navy's Mississippi chapter, and a boat carrying a search team and drone operator traveled to the island. They were there to find Nolan. But what they came away with was something much bigger than a search operation. They came away with a report. The United Cajun Navy has been working on Nolan Wells' case since his disappearance, and they are sharing all of the information they have gathered with his family and Mississippi authorities, specifically the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney. Now, here is what Brian Trasher said about what is in that report, and I want you to listen carefully to the framing he used. He said, "Since we have been involved in the initial search, we have been getting hundreds of tips, which we have sifted through and compiled a report of our findings. The findings do not implicate anyone or anything and is solely meant as an investigative tool and not meant to draw a conclusion," end quote. Notice this. He said it does not implicate anyone, but then the report was released, and what is inside it raises questions that have no clean answers yet. The Cajun Navy report includes a timeline plus time-stamped photos from tips that came through their website, direct messages, emails, and more. Time-stamped photos. That is the key phrase right there, because this is not memory. This is not someone's recollection of the afternoon. This is metadata. This is a camera telling you exactly what time a picture was taken and what that picture shows. TMZ obtained the United Cajun Navy's full investigative report into Nolan Wells's death, and it includes a new photo of the 3 boats his friends anchored off Mississippi's Horn Island on the day Nolan disappeared. 3 boats, side by side, anchored together. The photo on page 12 of the report shows the 3 boats anchored side by side, noted as boat number 3, the Palm Beach, and the Triton. The Triton. Again, that same boat, the one that took on water, the one that left the island without Nolan Wells. Now here is the friction point. Nolan's best friend, Warren Hudson, claimed he and other friends begged Nolan to board their vessel to leave the island around 4:30 in the afternoon. But the United Cajun Navy's report says the Triton left the island at 4:31 p.m. 4:31. Not 4:30, 1 minute after Warren says he begged Nolan to get on the boat. Think about what that means. The departure time in the Cajun Navy's report and the story Warren told, those are almost exactly aligned. What is 1 minute? It is nothing. But here is where this gets complicated. The report also notes a woman on the island named Caitlin Brochard, who snapped a picture of the vessels and reported that Nolan was nowhere in sight when her group left the island at 7:30 p.m. 7:30. Nolan's friends say they left at 4:31, and a woman who was on that same island says she and her group did not leave until 7:30. And at 7:30, Nolan was nowhere in sight. That is a 3-hour gap. A 3-hour gap on an uninhabited island with no communications, no shelter, no way to call for help. And now we know someone was there for 3 of those hours after Nolan's friends left, and they are speaking. But here is the question we have to sit with before we go further. According to the report, Brochard said Wells was nowhere in sight when her group left around 7:30 p.m., and much of the investigation has centered around Wells's whereabouts on the island prior to his death, and why he did not leave with his friends, something his family said was out of character for him. Out of character. His own family said that. He would not stay on an island by himself. He would not choose that. So the question is not just where was Nolan between 4:30 and 7:30. The question is what was happening on that island that kept him there. Now let us talk about the other woman, the one who has become central to why Nolan may have stayed in the first place. A new report has identified the woman Nolan Wells was reportedly speaking with before he disappeared. She was identified as 19-year-old Katie McCormack. Nolan's best friend Warren Hudson's mother, Ashley Cole, previously said that her son spoke to Wells around 3 p.m. on July 4th, and that Wells indicated he would get a boat home with another group of friends. So Warren's story is this. Nolan said he was good, said he had a ride, said he was staying, and so they left. But then Katie McCormack's sister stepped forward, and her version of events is different in a way that matters. The sister of Katie McCormack, the 19-year-old that Nolan Wells's friends said he stayed behind to talk to before he died, disputed their account as questions about his death continue to linger. She disputed it. Gracie McCormack disputed the account that Nolan intentionally stayed behind to keep talking with her sister Katie. McCormack's sister, Gracie, disputes the claim that Wells intentionally stayed behind to continue talking with Katie. Sit with that for a moment. The reason Nolan's friends gave for leaving him on the island, the thing that made it all make sense, is now being disputed by the family of the very person he was allegedly staying for. If Nolan did not stay for Katie, if that was not the reason, then what was? What was keeping him on that island? Now, let us talk about the body, because this is where the official record and the independent findings split. And the split matters. Todd Terrell, president of the United Cajun Navy, stated that Nolan was discovered face down and fully clothed in an area not far from rip currents. Terrell later clarified that Nolan was clothed only in his swim trunks after civil rights attorney Ben Crump questioned why Wells would be fully clothed, considering he was last photographed shirtless, shoeless, and wearing swim trunks. That clarification happened publicly. On the record. And it matters because the initial description created a question that has not fully gone away. If Nolan was in swim trunks when last seen and in swim trunks when found, that is consistent. But the word fully clothed was used first, and that is a word that sticks. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind said there were no obvious signs of physical injury, though the official autopsy and toxicology report performed by the Mississippi Medical Examiner's Office had not been completed at that time. No obvious signs, that phrase. Pay attention to what it is saying and what it is not saying. It is not saying there was no injury. It is saying nothing was obvious to the naked eye at the scene. Those are two different things. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office is conducting the official autopsy investigation. There were no immediate obvious signs of foul play or trauma on Wells's body. But due to the uncertain circumstances, the coroner said they asked for a full autopsy so that they could determine if there was any foul play or trauma. That is the official position. They did not rule out foul play. They requested a full autopsy precisely because the circumstances were uncertain. That is important. That is the coroner himself saying this is not settled. Then the family requested their own independent autopsy. And what that examination returned is the most important phrase in this entire case. His cause of death remains undetermined following an independent autopsy report requested by Wells' family. Undetermined, not drowning, not accidental. Undetermined. The independent examiner wrote that he could not rule out the possibility that non-accidental factors played a role. Say that again. Non-accidental factors. The family's own forensic pathologist, looking at Nolan's body, could not rule out the possibility that something was done to him. That is not a conclusion, but it is not nothing either. That is a forensic pathologist putting his name on a document and saying, I cannot clear this. Forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell continues reviewing evidence gathered during the family's independent examination after previously determining that the cause and manner of death remained undetermined pending additional investigation. Pending, still pending, as of right now. Notice this, 2 autopsies, official and independent. Neither one has given Nolan Wells a cause of death. The state has not released its findings. The independent examiner says the death remains undetermined, and a fake toxicology report is circulating online. Officials have stated that the purported toxicology report from Nolan Wells circulating through social media is fraudulent. Nolan's family, friends, and most importantly, Nolan himself deserve better. That came directly from the DA's office. The fake report is out there, people are sharing it, and officials are having to publicly deny that it is real. That is the environment this investigation is happening in, and that makes getting to real answers even harder. Now let us talk about the audio. Because civil rights attorney Ben Crump and his legal team are not waiting on the state. They are building their own investigative picture, and what they are focusing on reveals exactly where the holes in this case are. Forensic audio specialists retained by Crump's team are reviewing the complete CETO emergency call from July 4th, while ocean engineering experts are examining how Wells's body ultimately came to be recovered near the northwestern tip of Horn Island. The CETO call. That is the distress call made from the Triton, the boat that was taking on water, the call that was first made public by Mississippi marine authorities. There are theories playing out online, including an alleged enhanced audio extraction of the audio from the call placed from the boat Wells was previously on with his friends. The recording, first released by Mississippi marine authorities, originally captured a caller requesting help after reporting the boat was taking on water and possibly sinking. So the call was made, the boat was sinking, and the question is, what else is on that recording? Crump's team has forensic audio specialists on it. That tells you they believe there is something in that audio that has not been heard yet, or that has not been heard clearly. And then there is the ocean itself. Ben Crump's own words. We want to know, how is that possible with the oceanic tides? You've got low tides and high tides, so it's not adding up. His team also says discussions are ongoing regarding a joint forensic examination of cell phones connected to the case, an inspection that could involve the FBI. Cell phones, GPS data, timestamps on photos. The Cajun Navy's report, The Cito audio, Gracie McCormack contradicting the reason Nolan stayed, Caitlin Brochard saying he was nowhere in sight at 7:30. All of this is moving right now actively. And there is one more thing, a grand jury. With an independent autopsy unable to determine how Nolan died, a newly announced grand jury review has been set in motion, and the district attorney's office is defending their decision to keep details of the case out of public view while the investigation remains active. A grand jury review has been announced. That means a prosecutor has decided there is enough to put before a panel of citizens. That is not an indictment. But it is not nothing either. Whether a grand jury sees what investigators see and what it decides to do with that remains to be seen. Now, before we go into the expert moment, I need to bring you to the video because this is where the entire narrative almost collapsed. A clip went viral, shot from a boat on the water. You can hear shouting, you can see people on the beach, and Ben Crump in a press conference told the world what he believed he was hearing. Crump said that Wells could be heard in the video, saying, "This video, you can hear an argument going where Nolan is saying, 'Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?'" That clip spread everywhere, and for a moment, it felt like a breakthrough, like maybe there was footage of Nolan in distress. Maybe someone had taken his phone. Maybe there was a confrontation nobody had admitted to. And then Trayston Shepard spoke. Shepard, who was with Wells during the group trip to Horn Island, told ABC News that the voice heard shouting in the clip is his own, not Wells's, and Wells doesn't appear in the video at all. He went further. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Shepard said the voice many people identified as Wells is actually his. According to him, the confrontation in the video happened after he and his girlfriend got into an argument. An unknown man stepped into the dispute, causing the situation to escalate. And then there is this. Shepard rejected the claim that the individual in the video was Wells, arguing the person was too short to be his 6'2" friend. He maintained Wells was outside the camera's frame when the footage was recorded. Think about what that means for a second. The clip Crump put in front of the entire country. The clip that millions of people watched and dissected looking for proof of a confrontation. According to the person whose voice is actually on that clip, Nolan Wells is not even in the frame. Now, to be completely fair, attorneys also revisited the disputed video. At an earlier press conference, Crump said the footage captured Wells demanding his phone back. That claim has not been walked back publicly. But Shepard gave his account to investigators. He sat with law enforcement. Shepard has been speaking with law enforcement since Wells went missing and gave his full version of events of that day and of the video to local police officers on Friday, July 10. Whether a grand jury, if one is ultimately convened, would see the video the same way Crump saw it or the same way Shepard described it, that remains to be seen. But right now, the single piece of footage that seemed to show Nolan in danger is now in dispute at the source level. That matters, and you deserve to know it. Notice this. Every time a piece of what looked like evidence emerged in this case, someone with direct knowledge has stepped forward to complicate it. The video got disputed. The reason Nolan stayed got disputed. The cause of death is undetermined. The fake toxicology report is circulating, and now there is a 22-page civilian report that law enforcement did not produce. Volunteers did. That is the pattern we are sitting inside of right now. That brings us to the Cajun Navy report itself. And I want to go granular on this, because this is the single most important piece of new information that dropped this week. The United Cajun Navy released a detailed working timeline built from weeks of tips, photographs, videos, witness information, and mapping analysis surrounding Nolan Wells's final day on Horn Island. Using Google Earth imagery, marine navigation software, and time-stamped photos and videos, volunteers assembled what they describe as a visual and verbal timeline of the day's events, estimating where boats were located, when they moved, and how different pieces of information may fit together. 22 pages, submitted to family, attorneys, and law enforcement. The United Cajun Navy's working analytical report references data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, photos, and social media comments. And here is what they found when they ran the GPS records. The records show the boat carrying Wells left its departure dock at 9:56 a.m., arrived at Horn Island at 11:14 a.m., departed at 4:31 p.m., entered Fort Bayou at 5:52 p.m., returned to its original dock shortly after 6 p.m., and crews removed it from the water at the Fort Bayou boat launch at 7:19 p.m. GPS, timestamps, docking records. That is not someone's memory, that is data. And that data confirms the 4:31 departure time that Warren Hudson's account roughly lines up with. But here is the part of the report that people are not talking about enough. The report includes information about an almost fight video taken around 5 p.m., noting that witness statements dispute the idea that a man in the video was Wells, suggesting that it should not be taken as a confirmed sighting. The Cajun Navy, in their own report, flagged the video dispute. They are not pushing a theory. They are organizing what is known and naming what is not. And what is not known, according to this report, is significant. They noted there is no roster for any of the boats in question to know who was on them. No roster. On a federally protected island, with hundreds of people, boats moving in and out all afternoon. No passenger list. No accountability. And a man dead 2 days later. The report doesn't claim to solve the mystery of what happened to Nolan Wells or replace the work of investigators. Instead, it brings together scattered information into one organized working document that may help investigators, attorneys, and others better understand the sequence of events. But here is what strikes me about the Cajun Navy being the ones to do this. Not a police department, not the FBI independently, volunteers, people who got in boats. Nobody asked them to do it. They just decided somebody should. And that tells you something about where this investigation stood before they showed up. Does this look like panic, or does it look like a plan? Not from any suspect, but from a system that moved too slowly and left a gap that a civilian organization had to fill with Google Earth and time-stamped photos. Now, the expert moment. Because we cannot leave the evidence without someone explaining what it actually means. Dr. Roger Mitchell is the forensic pathologist retained by the Wells family to conduct the independent autopsy. He is a former chief medical examiner for Washington, D.C. He has handled thousands of cases. And when he looked at Nolan Wells, he did not sign off on a clean ruling. Wells's family is conducting their own independent investigation, including a private autopsy paid for by former NFL player Colin Kaepernick. That autopsy has not produced a drowning ruling. It has not produced any cause of death. Dr. Mitchell's position, as of now, is that the cause and manner of death remain undetermined, pending additional investigation. He cannot rule out the possibility that non-accidental factors played a role. Think about the weight of what a forensic pathologist is actually saying when he writes those words. He is not saying someone killed Nolan Wells. He is saying that with everything he examined, with every tool available to him, he cannot tell you that nothing was done to this boy. He cannot clear it, and a doctor of his experience does not write that in a report unless the evidence demands it. The state medical examiner's report has not been released. Official results are sealed until the case is presented to a grand jury. That is the official position right now. The state knows something. That knowledge is sealed, and the family is waiting. 2 separate medical examinations, neither one naming a cause of death. The ground under this case is not solid. It has not been solid from the beginning. Whether the state's sealed findings match the independent findings, whether they contradict them, whether a jury will ever see both side by side, those questions are still open. Now, let us talk about what the family is actually asking for, because it is important to hear it in their own words. Not filtered, not paraphrased, their words. Ben Crump, standing outside the Jackson County Courthouse on July 15th, put it plainly. Nolan's family still has no answers about how their son went to Horn Island and never came home. A thorough investigation must be completed, and the district attorney must put every relevant fact before the grand jury. Nothing held back, nothing overlooked. That is the ask. Not a predetermined outcome, not a specific charge, a process. Put every relevant fact in front of a grand jury. Let them decide what it means. Let the evidence speak. Crump said they met with Jackson County District Attorney Angel McElrath to discuss the case. According to Crump, there will be a grand jury selected once all of the information has been collected and the investigation into the 18-year-old's death has been completed. And what the DA said about convening a grand jury is worth your attention. The DA's office said convening a grand jury does not mean there is any criminality and is standard procedure for most unnatural or suspicious deaths in the county. That is the official framing. Standard procedure, but also the first formal acknowledgement that this death is, at minimum, suspicious enough to warrant a citizen panel reviewing the evidence. Crump said, "We also agreed that we would have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts." Attorney Eric Hertz is helping lead the investigation team with former law enforcement experts who are going to help us with the cell phone download, so everybody will be able to see at the same time what the cell phone has. End quote. The cell phone. The cell phone. That is the next frontier in this case. GPS data, messages, timestamps, call logs. The phone, when it is downloaded jointly by both sides, will either answer questions or create new ones. And Crump made clear it will not be a one-sided extraction. Both teams, same room, same moment, same data. Wells' parents feel strongly that he would not have just stayed behind and wouldn't have left his cell phone, Crump said. There it is. From the people who knew Nolan Wells better than anyone, he would not have left his phone, and he would not have stayed alone on an island 10 miles from shore. That is not speculation. That is a mother and father telling you who their son was. Now, here is where the unraveling becomes personal. Because what has happened to Christine Wansley since she started asking questions about her son's death is its own story. Supporters say Nolan Wells' mother, Christine Wansley, has been targeted with one-star reviews on her professional profile amid the ongoing case surrounding her son's death. Nolan Wells' mother is reportedly facing a wave of negative reviews on her professional profile, an apparent escalation of the scrutiny surrounding her family since the teen's death drew national attention. Wansley previously revealed that hate mail had been sent to her home in the days leading up to Nolan's funeral, calling out the anonymous sender in a public post of her own. And AI-generated videos. Crump said AI-generated videos falsely depicting Christine Wansley, Nolan's mother, have circulated online, an added strain as the family prepares to bury their son. Crump said, "It's just god-awful as they're grieving and trying to fight for the truth, that they are also having to deal with these fake videos attacking them." This woman buried her son. She attended his funeral at Centerpoint Church in Ocean Springs. She is a nurse practitioner. She is a mother. And while she was trying to find out how her child died, someone was sending hate mail to her house. Someone was leaving one-star reviews on her work profile. Someone was generating fake videos with her likeness. Christine Wansley had to take to Facebook to address it herself, publicly, while grieving. She wrote, 7. I wanted to take a moment to clear the air regarding my employment with Memorial Health System. I am still employed at Memorial Health System as a family nurse practitioner. I was not fired. Following the tragic passing of my son, I am taking time away from work to grieve and heal, which I believe anyone can understand. Read that again. A mother whose son just died, having to defend her job. On Facebook, because people decided that a woman asking for answers about her child's death deserved to be targeted. That is not a detail on the margins of this case. That is the environment this family is navigating while simultaneously trying to get truth out of a system that has given them almost nothing. The Congressional Black Caucus is amplifying the family's calls for an independent investigation, saying in a statement, "Too many questions remain unanswered." Too many questions. That is not a talking point. That is an assessment. Notice this. A GoFundMe set up for Nolan's family. A GoFundMe set up in his memory has raised more than $230,000. Attorney Ben Crump said that actor Tyler Perry paid for the funeral expenses. Former NFL player Colin Kaepernick paid for the independent autopsy. People who never met this family are reaching into their pockets because the system has not given them what they need. And then Warren Hudson's father. On the other side, Dr. Benjamin Hudson, the father of Nolan's best friend Warren Hudson, told TMZ their family is offering a $50,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for his death. Think about what that means. Warren's own father is offering money for an arrest and conviction. That is not someone who believes this was a simple accident. That is a man putting $50,000 behind the belief that someone is responsible for what happened to Nolan Wells on Horn Island. So here is where we are. Right now, today, the cause of death is officially undetermined. The independent autopsy has not cleared this as an accident. The Cajun Navy's 22-page report is in the hands of prosecutors and law enforcement. The cell phone has not been downloaded yet. The grand jury has not been seated. The state autopsy is sealed. The investigation has been muddied by widespread misinformation and AI-generated images and videos that spread as though they are real. And in the middle of all of that, a mother, a father, siblings at home going through what Christine Wansley called, in her own words, the motions of grief. She wrote on Facebook, "This has been the worst time in our lives. Watching his siblings go through the motions of grief adds another layer to the sadness." She added, "Please keep us in your prayers and continue to respect our privacy." That is the human center of this case. Not the Cajun Navy report, not the grand jury, not the disputed video. A family in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, asking for privacy to grieve a boy who went to an island on the 4th of July and did not come home. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He played wide receiver, he had a scholarship, he had a future, he went out on the water with his friends to celebrate a holiday, and 2 days later, he was found face down on an uninhabited island. His cause of death is undetermined. The investigation is active. The grand jury is coming. The cell phone has not been examined. The CTO audio is still being analyzed. The Cajun Navy report is in prosecutors' hands. And a woman who was on that island for 3 hours after Nolan's friends left has now spoken. The question we started with is still the only honest question to sit with. What happened on Horn Island in those 3 hours between 4:31 in the afternoon and 7:30 at night? What kept Nolan Wells there when his family says he never would have stayed? And who was there to see it? We do not have those answers yet, but the record is growing, and this case is not going quiet. We will keep following this until there are real answers. If you are watching this case and you are not subscribed, subscribe now so you do not miss the next update. We drop every new development as it breaks.